Today I wanted to talk about a few things that I'm doing differently in the kitchen this year, and it ranges from new ingredients I'm using more of and new equipment I'm trying versus old equipment that I'm getting rid of, as well as just a few general habits that I'm trying to work into my routine. First, let's talk about ingredients. One of the things I'm going to be cooking and eating more of this year sounds a bit weird, but it's fake meat. I bought these soy curls a few weeks ago and I just was curious to try them out, and they're pretty delicious. I made like a beef and broccoli kind of recipe with them and it was pretty damn good. And I'm not a vegetarian, but I do think that eating less meat is generally a good idea. And when it comes to things like this, I don't see it as, oh, you're just trying to get fake meat, why not get the real thing? I just see it as a new and fun ingredient to play around with. So soy curls are on that list, as well as seitan, which I have known about forever, but for some reason I've never played around with it. It's basically just gluten from wheat made into a dough and steamed, and it tastes a lot like chicken, to be honest. I made some a little while ago by making a dough with flour and then washing the dough until all of the starch came out. It turned out pretty well. I cut it into little bits and fried it and put like a Korean glaze on it. It was so good. So I'm definitely going to be playing around with that some more. Not exactly in the fake meat category, but tofu, and specifically silken tofu. I'm such a fan of silken tofu, and it's one of those things that I always forget about. I've been cooking a lot of it lately and I've been loving it. It's exactly what I want. So I did a video last week where I shared 3 ways to use silken tofu, so check that out if you haven't already. Another ingredient I'm going to use more of this year is a bit of a controversial one, and it's MSG. MSG has had a lot of bad PR, but from all the studies that I see now and from the general consensus, it seems like MSG is totally fine as long as you have it in moderation, just kind of like how you would have salt. Of course, there are people that are sensitive to MSG, and that's a whole other thing, but you know what? There are people that are allergic to strawberries too. So it's just one of those things that has got a bad rap, but all signs point these days to it's totally okay, and I'm into it. I'm gonna try and sprinkle it onto my food. The only concern I have with using MSG in my cooking is that I'm worried that it's gonna taste so good that I'm gonna eat more because that's kind of what it does, right? It gives you that like addictive quality, like Doritos. So yeah, that's a concern, but I'm just gonna be careful. In terms of general habits that I'm gonna change up this year, one main one I think is gonna be a total game changer, and that is prepping a bunch of garlic ahead of time. This is something that I have not really done much of. I'm always like a chop it, use it, fresh garlic kind of person. But because of that, I feel like I don't use as much garlic as I would if I already had a bunch chopped. So the main thing with pre-chopping garlic is you have to go through it pretty quickly. So I find that if I use a container like this, I can go through this in like 3 days, and it means that my food has a lot more garlic in it, which I'm happy about. And in the winter, when I can't get local garlic and all the garlic comes from far, far away anyway, I sometimes even just buy the bags of peeled garlic, because if I'm gonna get far away garlic, I might as well get far away peeled garlic. That saves me a bunch of steps, and then I can just chuck it in my mini chopper, chop up, you know, a good amount for a few days, and then I can just use it in all my cooking. I think that using more garlic in my cooking is gonna outweigh the slightly lower freshness level of chopping it fresh each time. Does that make sense? What else? Okay, now onto equipment. I talked about my new rice cooker a few episodes ago, and I am definitely gonna be eating more rice this year. I love this thing. I'm starting to love it more and more all the time. I use it for white rice, I use it for brown rice, and I even bought this bag of multigrain. It's just called multigrain. It actually has a whole bunch of stuff in it: brown rice, oats, pearl barley, red wheat, buckwheat, barley flakes, sorghum, millet, blah, blah, blah. So there's a multigrain setting on my rice cooker. So I'm definitely gonna try it out with this stuff. And there's also a porridge setting on my rice cooker. So I'm really excited to put some of this stuff in, put it on the porridge setting right before I go to bed, and then wake up in the morning and have hot porridge. I don't know if this is gonna stick, but at the moment, I'm really preferring short grain rice over long grain rice. Brown, white, whatever, but just short grain, that sticky kind of satisfying short grain rice. I'm just loving it right now. Another piece of equipment I'm gonna be using more of, which is something I've had for a while, is this clay pot. This is a Bulgarian one, and I don't use it very often, but every time I do use it, I am so happy I did. It makes food taste so good somehow. It's just something about the way that it locks everything in. There is a little vent hole here, so some steam does escape, but everything just gets so good in there. I did an episode a while ago where I did a Bulgarian dinner party and I cooked a really, really nice pork stew in here. We just had Christmas dinner here and I cooked my stuffing in this and it was so good. It just did a perfect job. Okay, last but not least, probably the most significant change is I'm going to try to finally break up with my Teflon pans. I don't cook a lot in Teflon, but I have always had one small Teflon pan that I just use for eggs. And generally it's this small size and I really like being able to fry eggs and have them slide around, no problem. And I've always been really careful not to scratch my Teflon. I keep it, lined with a tea towel in the drawer. I don't use anything metal on it, of course. I don't even really wash it very well. I kind of do treat it like a little baby, but inevitably it always does get scratched. And I do not feel comfortable with scratched Teflon. I barely feel comfortable with fresh Teflon, but when it's scratched, it's even worse. I actually had one Teflon pan that I managed to keep in perfect condition for 10 years or something, and then it started to go a little scratchy. But even then, it's wasteful, When it's not good anymore, it's just garbage, and I don't like that. I want my equipment to really stand the test of time with me. I use a lot of cast iron, I use a lot of stainless steel, and I want these to be pieces that I grow old with and that I can pass them down to my nieces and nephews. So I have purchased a carbon steel saute pan. This is a really big one. This is 12 inches, but I've been using it and testing it out and cooking eggs on it. And so far it seems really promising. I can fry an egg or scramble eggs in here and they can slide around really nicely. I found that I've never been able to really do that with cast iron, and also the sides of cast iron are kind of too angled, so it's hard to really flip things nicely. It's hard to get the spatula in there. These need to be seasoned just like cast iron pans. I've just embarked upon my carbon steel journey, so I'll let you know how it goes. And if you have any tips for me, please let me know down in the comments. I do think that I'm going to invest in a small carbon steel pan like this so that I can do my 2 fried eggs thing, because I like to put two eggs in and flip them, and it's just something I enjoy doing, so I kind of want to have that same sensation with the carbon steel. So those are the biggest changes I'm making this year. Let me know what kind of changes you're making in your kitchen this year. I'm curious to hear what you're going to be doing differently, what new ingredients you're going to be cooking with. And yeah, I look forward to another year with you. So thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.